says I gotta go, tired of going solo, but I'm never gonna go there again. This is what it is, this is who I am, this is where I finally take my stand. I didn't want to fall, but I don't control. I'm not the one with two star hands, giving him the best of everything that's left of. The living this man, I've been born again.
Yes, everybody. Good Saturday morning. This is Eddie Huff, as usual, with my sidekick and rear kick, David Van Risingham.
When he needs it.
When I need it, yeah, and I need it a lot. And hey, this is quite a week that we have had, but we're going to get to that a little later. We have some special guests in the studio today. So, Dave, would you introduce our guests, please?
We have the Vice Mayor of Broken Senate, Christy Gillespie, and she's joined State Senator a few years now, and fantastic representation. But Eddie, I invited him to come on in and talk about all the decisions that they're hearing from the people on. Of course, we're going to get a lot of perspective on municipal government challenges coming from the Tulsa metro area, but also what's the Senate's facing, an ever-changing Senate. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
You.
good. Christy, tell us about yourself. What got you involved in this crazy world of politics?
Well, really what got me involved initially is just my love for our community.
Mhm.
And Broken Arrow is an amazing place to live,
It
work
is.
and play, and we want to keep it that way.
Mhm.
And it's also a very conservative community, so we want to keep it that way.
Mhm.
And so when I got involved, originally it was because I wanted to revitalize South Broken Arrow, and I decided, you know what, there's a way to do that, and one of those ways is to actually run for city council.
Yeah, and you represent South Broken.
I do. Yes, we in Broken Arrow, the whole city votes on city council, but you have to live in your ward. So I live in South Broken Arrow. So I ran for city council in 2019, won that seat, and we started doing great things.
Wait a minute. You're saying you ran representing this district, but the whole city got to vote on you?
Yes, and it is a little different in Broken Arrow. Actually, what's interesting, my constituency as a city councilor in Broken Arrow is actually more than my state Senate constituency.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, when I first moved to Broken Arrow, 1980, lived in a little mobile home park off of Lynn Lanes. I was in Wagner County, and not Lynn Lane, County Line Road. I was just west, but I think we were like 60,000,
right?
And they were talking about how big we've grown. Because I came down like you, Dana, a Rama student, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we quickly had the motto: "Life is good in Broken Arrow." Everybody, I don't know if that's still a thing today.
It is.
But it is good in Broken Arrow.
Life is really good in BA, and it's so fun to see the growth. I mean, when I moved to Broken Arrow, I was 10 years old, and I fell in love with our community. I'm from Missouri originally, but moved to BA, and when I was 10, my dad's a Walmart manager, and so I knew a good thing when we moved there. And I grew up in the community and moved away for but for 2020 happened. We never mandated anything in our city.
Oh, that was a fight though, wasn't it?
It was a fight, and we were very strong, and we had a lot of outside influences trying to come in and influence Broken Arrow, but we really decided, you know what, it's not the government's job to mandate what I put on my face, what I put in my body, and we'll themselves what their choices are. And that's kind of the motto that city by for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I really am proud of that. And I want to continue that at the state Senate level.
Yeah. Now, Mayor Thurman lost that election, and largely I had to tell his campaign, I said, it was because you weren't strong enough on liberty issues in the face of this whole COVID thing.
Right. What happened is the night of or right before our election in his election 2020, won, we did a vote on a mask. What was it? It wasn't a mandate or a resolution.
Mhm.
And my thought, I actually tore up the resolution. It kind of was a video that went viral.
Mhm.
And I said, this means nothing. This is a resolution telling you what our opinion is.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be so condescending
Yeah.
to tell you what my opinion is on what you should wear on your face.
Yeah. And the chamber pushed him on that. And that's the problem. When you're too tied to one special interest and you lose touch with the base of
Mhm.
voters.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know, Senator, you deal with that at the Capitol. Your constituents come first, right?
Yes, matter of fact, there was a bill that was it was kind of about like the morning after pill, and I was hearing from both sides, vote yes for this, vote no against. I believe it was Tim Gillespie was in my office, vehemently opposed to it, and so I said, "Look," I said, "conservatives elected me. I have to be no against your bill because the conservatives who elect me do not want me to vote yes on that bill." And I believe the bill still passed,
Mhm.
but I was a no on it. And of course, so were most of the conservatives.
Mhm. So
And,
true.
and just to be clear,
You're not on.
I'm not on.
No.
Should be test.
So,
Well, I think
There you
I
go.
was just down too far,
yep.
which is unusual. No, just to be clear, Christy, you're not related to Tim Gillespie.
No, I'm not. No.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that out there for
No Gillespie
clarification.
relative
People-
in the city.
Yeah.
Tim is, his legacy is starting OK2A, which is a very fantastic grassroots Second Amendment rights
Yes.
group. Yeah. So,
Right. So go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
yeah. So, Chrissy, you're in a race. How did your primary go?
It went fantastic. So there were 4 of us,
Mhm.
and I won. Of course, the goal was to get to 50% plus 1. We didn't quite get there, but we did get 44% of the vote. So we won the evening.
Mhm.
Since we didn't get to 50%, we will go to a runoff on August 27th. It'll be me and my opponent that got second place.
Sure. I believe that's Courtney. What's first?
Yes, Shelley Gorton.
Shelley.
Yes.
Shelley, I think, was the first announced candidate in the race. She's been working.
Yes,
quite a
she
while.
was. Yes.
Yeah. And now she's no Hillary Clinton. I mean, she's a conservative.
Yes, absolutely.
You've been able to keep it positive.
No.
And
I'm determined to keep it that way because we are conservative Republicans. It's me apart. I'm not running against anybody.
Mhm.
I'm running for myself.
Perfect.
I am running for the people of Broken Arrow,
Yeah.
and I'm running for our community. So I'm going to run on my experience,
Mhm.
my conservative record, proven record,
Mhm.
and just the relationships that I've built throughout our
right.
state.
If you win, you're going to have to say goodbye to the city council. They're going to have to find somebody else.
Yes, when I win.
Yes. There you go. I believe, is there a general election that follows?
So what will happen is in November, I will be sworn in when I win. I'll be sworn in
But what
November.
I'm getting, is there a candidate on the Democrat or Independents?
Oh, I'm sorry, for the Senate seat. Yes, there is a Democrat. Yes.
Okay. So we got another election.
Yes.
So it's 3 elections.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And assuming that happens, Broken Arrow is going to have to fill a vacancy.
Right.
And what are the biggest challenges then that Broken Arrow will be facing that you see that are coming up?
Well, public safety is always it's one of the reasons I ran,
Mhm.
that I decided to run for state senate, is because the way that public safety is funded in our state.
Mhm.
We depend solely on sales tax for
Mhm.
police and fire.
Mhm.
And, Broken Arrow is very, very blessed because we have a very loyal community who
Mhm.
wants to buy in Broken Arrow. But there are many cities in our state that they might not have a Walmart in
Mhm.
their city. They
Mhm.
might not have a huge sales tax base.
Mhm.
So how do they keep public safety funded?
Mhm.
And so that was a big thing, and it always will be. And so we need to make sure that that we have somebody that's really good at working hard, not just at the municipal level, but at the state level.
Yeah. And, there's problems with every tax, yet there's a need for public funding
Mhm.
for core services.
Right.
And there's plenty of people that think we need another Pops Museum or something else. It's
Right.
that those folks at the Senate. And I hope you aren't adding to that legacy if you're elected.
No.
But the difficult thing with all of them, I mean, people say there should not be a property tax because he already paid for the house using after tax dollars.
Mhm.
And then you got to pay to continue living in that house. So it's like it's never yours. And but then sales tax, I mean, we've got, single moms trying to feed the kids, and yet her taxes are going to fund OU. So some millionaire kid can get his master's degree.
Crazy.
And the single mom whose kids may never go to college.
I was that single mom for a while.
Okay.
My daughter is that single mom right now.
Yeah.
And so I feel like property taxes is something that we could do right now
Mhm.
because there's all these ideas out there. We need to do something. The first thing we could do is eliminate property taxes for those that make $27,000 and below,
Mhm.
and eliminate it or at least cap it for those that are 65 and over. And I think that, the legislature's working on that.
Actually, currently, the evaluation is capped once you're 65.
Yes.
If you go down to the county,
Yes.
The county offices
think
and
it's-
apply.
I think there's an income cap though on it because I was talking to someone about that, and there's like I'm not positive, but they told me there was an income cap.
That's a separate one.
Okay.
That's 65 and you make less than a
Mhm.
certain amount. Then you get an additional similar to the homestead credit.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Right.
I know because I thought it was at 62 and I went down there
Yeah.
and they spelled it out for me.
Was that
Yeah.
65?
It's 65.
Wow.
And you do have to apply for it because
Yes, you
that's
do.
which I didn't even know it existed. And
Mhm.
I was speaking at the senior center in our city. The other seniors had no idea it
Mhm.
existed. So it's a secret
Yeah.
that we
And-
need to get out there.
I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
and I-
But on
I'm gonna
that-
go apply for it now.
Yeah.
Capping against evaluation,
Mhm.
that doesn't have a means test.
Right.
That is anybody,
Right.
even rich folk like Eddie.
Yeah.
So, all right, Eddie, you got a question?
No, just so you served on the Broken Arrow City Council,
Yes.
vice mayor.
Right.
Now, Broken Arrow has a different system than Tulsa. The city does not elect a mayor.
Right.
The council elects a mayor.
Right.
So you guys just vote among yourselves and then choose who is going to be the head council person, and that will be the mayor.
Exactly.
So does the mayor then have any greater authority than anyone else?
The mayor has, and our current mayor is Deborah Wimpy, and she's been an amazing spokesperson and mayor for our city. But the mayor does have some executive powers. Like if the mayor did want to shut our city down, the mayor would actually have the authority to do that in an emergency situation. And there's certain situations, like I think during our flood that we had in May of 2019, that they can do certain things, but it's always like an emergency order. But otherwise, the whole council votes. Our vote counts the same, and the mayor does have a few appointment, things that they can do. But we have always been since I've been on council at least, we've been very open to receiving recommendations from the entire council for any appointments that happen, which has been really good.
That's good. Now, do you guys have a city planner
Yes, we do.
and city manager?
Yes.
So you have a city planner and a manager.
Our city manager, so the city council is over the city manager,
Right.
and then the city manager runs the city.
There
Yes.
you go.
Yes.
Because I have to say that I've been very, very impressed with the development of Broken Arrow,
Mhm.
and Oklahoma as well, Oklahoma City as well. But Broken Arrow in particular in this region, every time I go there, I'm newly impressed by things you've done. I think you were the first ones
Thank
to
you.
have the flashing turn signal.
Yes.
Yeah, I said, whoa, now there's somebody who's thinking.
My husband loves those.
Yeah, me too. I love those too.
Because he can't stand waiting. It's like,
I need somebody.
I need to
that
meet him,
is
my
so
man.
yellow,
That's my,
because they had a flashing yellow here at 71st or 61st and Sheridan. They would not move, and I'm honking,
Oh.
and he flips me the bird and everything. And I'm like, first of all, if
Flashing
you're
yellow.
the front of the line, you're supposed to get out in the
that's right.
intersection and
That's
wait.
right.
And he wouldn't. And then, yeah, it just, yeah.
It's
So
the
you
little
gotta-
things. It's the little things.
yeah, it is. But again, and the whole thing with the Rose District, how it's developed, and
Yes.
my wife and I, we always have a decision to make. Do you go to Cherry Street? Do you go downtown? Or do you go to Broken Arrow?
You go to the Broken Arrow.
And 101st was that Washington? Is that
Yeah,
Washington?
101st and Elm is New Orleans. So 101st, yeah,
That was pretty much you, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, yeah. It
All the
was.
development
Have
of
you
that
been
was
to
there.
New Orleans Square?
Yeah.
Everyone needs to come out tonight because we have our third night of our block party, and the intersection closes down at
Mhm.
2:00. We have free concert. Prince's band is going to be there.
Okay.
The
The
time.
Revolution.
Well, yes, they are. It's a pretty.
Is there gonna
We're
be
very
fireworks?
exciting. There will be fireworks,
Oh,
and
wow.
so and vendors and food trucks and all that.
Yeah.
But we have the whole intersection shut down, and actually the middle of the intersection has become a splash pad for the evening. So we have sprinklers going off so the kids can play in it. It's very fun.
Brilliant.
But that's another place that we really revitalized. And think about that, all those businesses that have been there for decades. So we're not just about new businesses. We're about honoring those businesses
Okay.
that have been there, those small businesses that invest in our community. They're the backbone of our state, of our country. And we want to make sure that we keep investing in those intersections and infrastructure to keep those small businesses thriving.
Right.
The thing I was I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry,
The thing I
Daniel.
was most impressed about when we went to that, I believe it was last year.
Yeah.
Was how quickly it emptied out.
Yeah.
I mean, there was thousands and thousands,
Right.
10,000,
Yeah.
20,000 people there. And we were out and home in a few minutes.
Yep. Yep.
It was amazing.
Yeah. I want to say this has to deal with a state issue and municipal TIF funding,
Mhm.
tax increment funding. It's often used to bring in new development, sometimes outside businesses. The challenge I have with it, if I'm some traditional street retailer, take Ed Bashira's Men's Clothing. They're no longer in business. They were on 31st in Harvard, that area.
Mhm.
Never got TIF funding. Streets are lousy. But boy, we made all kinds of things happen at Tulsa Hills.
Right.
And it's the government many times picking the winners and losers. And oftentimes they're giving special perks to somebody with no demonstrated loyalty
Mhm.
to the city. And the mom and pops businesses that have been an anchor for years often get forgotten and punished by it. So that's the problem I have with the TIF funding.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would love
tax
to.
increment.
I would love to respond to that.
Please.
Okay. So you can have both. I mean, I think we're doing that well in Broken Arrow.
I think you just demonstrated with
do you
New
know
Orleans
that
Square.
the Rose District is a TIF district?
Exactly.
So the Rose District is a TIF district, and a TIF district does not raise taxes. It doesn't take taxes
Mhm.
away from anybody. All it does is it takes those funds, the businesses, those companies that are coming in,
Mhm.
they still pay the taxes.
Yes.
So it goes into coffers that then help, like we're building infrastructure. For
Mhm.
instance, the amphitheater that we're putting in, that's
Mhm.
a TIF district. But it's not just the amphitheater that gets that. There's a whole district.
Most of
that
the time
runs-
it's paying for infrastructure.
It is.
It's
and
for widening streets.
Right.
that's exactly. And with the Rose District, we also did an overlay. So it paid all the pretty that's there.
Mhm.
It paid for those things.
See, that's a
and-
much better managed
Yes.
thing. I just gave you the example of Ed Bashir going out of
Mhm.
business.
And we can do just a sales tax TIF, which is what we did with the amphitheater. So it doesn't affect property taxes at all. So it doesn't affect education.
Right. So inherently, it's not the TIF itself I have a problem with.
Mhm.
It's the chasing after the pretty new things and
Right.
forgetting the people that have demonstrated.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And we can do both. It takes very intentional development, and economic development, growth and prosperity are very important to me, because I know without that, city dies. If you're not moving forward, you're not staying still. You're
Yeah.
moving backward. And
Right.
we have to have that in our
See, in
cities.
Tulsa, they created something that Costco became a beneficiary of. But mom and pop's businesses don't qualify.
Okay.
It's only for the big boys.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with that. And that was a Tulsa thing. I'm not, Broken Arrow
Right.
seems to be demonstrating a better thing. I also have the same problem, like Owasso is taking a hotel, motel lodging tax and using it for things other than tourism and hospitality.
Yeah.
And they're punishing and suppressing their lodging industry
Right.
for some other industry. Macy's was a beneficiary. I think Maytag was. And I think it should be used for the purpose.
So,
of
for
it.
instance, some part of our hotel motel tax, we created a program with Uber. So our hotels that are in town, we have an Uber program that you actually can Uber anywhere within. It's to New Orleans Square, to the Rose District in this little area. You can Uber for free.
Oh.
So, and we pay for it. It
Wow.
keeps people in our city.
Oh, so you can't go to Woodland Hills Mall.
No, you cannot. No, it keeps people.
Eddie would like you to go to Woodland Hills Mall.
You have to stay. But so people are staying in the city to go, you could go to the bar if you want to.
Yeah, or Bass
Uber
Pro
back.
Shop.
You could go. I mean, most of our hotels are right across the street from Bass Pro, so you maybe just walk across the street.
That's true too, yeah.
But if you are, wanting to go to New Orleans Square to the block party tonight, you could stay in a hotel and Uber back and forth, and it's on the city.
All right, Jinx, Owasso, Sand Springs, the rest of you.
Tulsa.
Are you taking notes? I think that's brilliant.
Our city manager and our city of Broken Arrow staff, they are the absolute cream of the crop.
Yeah.
And so I take no credit for most of these ideas, but I'm sure and proud to get to implement them.
I've been a good friend of Tom Cook.
We love Tom. He does a great job for us.
The comptroller, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you see why I asked her to run for?
That's right, Dana. And because I think you ran once before, but the Senate was kind of moved, and it actually was a big part of Broken Arrow.
Yes.
Does it have any of Broken Arrow left in it?
No.
Okay.
What they did was they carved out. It was Senator Haste and district. What district are you running in? Nathan Downs?
33.
33.
Yep.
John Haste was getting too big. He was getting too big for his britches.
Oh, I'm cutting it out. Yeah. Well, the population growth.
Yes,
of
it
that
has to be
district.
80,000, give or take 5%.
Yeah.
And so,
Sorry, John. Not really.
We love Senator Haste.
Yeah, John's a great guy.
yes, he's been actually become a very good friend.
Yeah.
And I ran against him.
I think he's a gentleman.
Yes, he's a very, very nice guy. So they had to take some territory away from his district. And so they began looking at blocks. Where can we take, 4 or 5 precincts? And John Haste said, oh, Dana Prieto lives over in that area. And then they looked at Nathan Dom, and Nathan Dom said, oh, Dana Prieto lives over there. And so the guy who did the gerrymandering of that talked to me, and I said, well, why didn't anybody ever tell me that? And they said, they can't tell you that. They just have to do it. And then
Wasn't Dave Rader, our good friend Dave, involved in that redistricting? I think he was the Senate chair of
He
that.
may have been, and I didn't know that. It was
Yeah.
the guys over the Petroleum Alliance now who they've chosen from the state for the last 3 times they've had to do redistricting.
Yeah.
And he just told me that a couple of people had mentioned that, I would be a good candidate there.
Right. And that had been a Republican district. And then J.J. Dossett,
Yes.
who's a school teacher in Owasso,
Yes.
had won that twice.
Yeah.
And then redistricting. And you defeated
Yeah. And
a 2-time incumbent.
one of the terms, he didn't have any opponent.
His second term.
Yeah. So he won on a special election because the predecessor had been arrested for something.
He had a gambling addiction
Yes,
and
yes.
embezzled money.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that left people with a bad feeling about Republicans at that time.
That Plus, Owasso believes that's their district. And the Republican was from Skiatook, and we can't have that if we're Owasso people.
That makes sense.
Okay.
That was part of it. Yeah, it was our friend David McLean.
Yes. Oh,
I
yes.
helped him
yes.
out in that campaign. So,
Yes.
but yeah, and that's just some of it. It's the same thing. Our Wendy Stearman, state rep in an area that included Bartlesville, but she didn't live in. She's Collinsville.
Oh,
And see, the next election, Bartlesville will want that back.
all right.
Yeah.
So
So
I
there,
told
you
David,
get some of that we own
Yeah.
it kind of feel.
I told David I was running to get this back.
Somebody from Tulsa wants it. The Broken Arrow people say, no, that's our district. And you're okay with that.
I am totally okay with that. Yes, I support that.
Yeah. I do want to turn a corner in going on in the Senate.
Well, let me
Yeah.
just ask
Yeah.
real quick. So, do you have a successor in mind, or does the city have a successor in mind for your spot? Because it sounds like you've been doing a pretty good job. In Broken Arrow will lose you there
Right.
if you go to the State House. So, do you have someone in mind, or does the city have someone, or can you even?
I have
Take
a few
sides.
people in my. I have a few people that have talked to me that are very interested in the seat. And the fact is, what will happen, and I don't know because I won't be there, but is that the city council will appoint somebody, and then that person and whoever else wants to run will run in April of 25.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it'll be
Because
a
your
short
term's
term.
not up yet,
Right.
so you're in
Right.
the middle of your term, right?
And so I have a few people who have talked to me, and I have some really good people. So it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
And I'm really surprised, but I also have a lot of people that they have that thought that they are like, we don't want to lose you, because they know what a fighter I've been for our city. But what I say is I'm going to continue that fierce advocacy at the state level. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean that I won't still have conversations.
Right.
That I think even more, I will have conversations with
Oh,
our
yeah.
city council and with our city manager. So they're still going to get that. But yeah, we have some people that have really stepped up to the plate that are interested, but I
Mhm.
honestly have no idea which one it'll be.
Well,
Yeah.
I had a perfect example. Somebody who's with Jinx City government for
Mhm.
years, Lonnie Sims,
Mhm.
went to the state legislature, and the aquarium needed some adjustments in state law. You could go to a museum and buy a ticket to get in. You weren't charged sales tax, but the aquarium was not treated like a zoo or a museum.
Mm,
And they had charged sales tax. And Lonnie made a good argument. We don't want to do that here. This is just every bit as educational as anything else.
absolutely.
And so that's an example where you could take your insights from city government to improve state government.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
and Dana, so you, how long have you been in the at the state level?
Almost 2 years, maybe a year and 3/4, something like that.
So, and yeah, you're running for reelection this,
About a year from now, I'll run for reelection.
and you've chosen this lady to, or you have coaxed her into.
Yes. And they're
I-
running for,
I know what that's like.
yeah. And actually, the way I got my start in politics was Nathan Dom's sister contacted my wife and asked if I would go door to door with him. And I told my wife, I said, that's crazy. I don't want to go door to door. And so my wife wisely said, you have such strong feelings. I think you ought to go door to door with him. So I went she goes, go a couple times. So I went one night. I told Nathan, I said, I can go 3 nights a week. Can't go Wednesdays because we have church, and then I'll go 2 Saturdays with you. Just loved it. And somewhere around in that first campaign, or maybe it was the second one, I helped him. His sister said, half the doors we go to in Broken Arrow, you know the people. And she said, you've been in business here for 30 years. We think you ought to, or she thought I ought to run for senator. So then I did, and I lost.
Well, that was a 4-way deal, and that was
Yes.
up against Sean Hayes. He had quite
Yes.
a machine.
Yes.
Your wife sounds a lot like my wife. She's like, okay, go find somebody to talk politics because I'm not really into it. So every Saturday morning, she sends me down to talk to Eddie.
Well, now my wife is getting involved with the Republican Party and
There you go.
volunteering, so now she wants to talk politics.
Oh, she caught the bug. Good.
way.
talk to my wife.
Yeah.
My wife will go to the banquets or something in the Senate. The people rose up and took the Senate, or the appointed leader, next leader of the
the
Senate.
anointed one.
Yeah.
I was really surprised by that.
Weren't you?
Now, I knew somebody who was working on, I forgot the guy's name who won,
Mhm.
but he,
Wingard.
yes, Wingard.
Mhm.
I knew somebody who was working on his campaign, and she was making phone calls, and she said, I cannot find anybody voting for McCourtney. And I said, I find that hard to believe. I said, you know, he's the incumbent.
Mhm.
He's been doing a lot of work up here. Everybody knows him. And she said, no. And that night, Tuesday night, she called me about 10 o'clock, and she said, I'm just about ready to cry. She said, I can't believe we did it.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it was 300 and something thousand in McCourtney's race. And the
You
guy-
mean money?
Yes. And Wingard, he had 26,000. JJ Dossett, he had 130,000. 70,000 was from other sources. It was
Yes.
60,000 was his own. 35,000 of that we could trace back to somebody who worked on the Joy Hoffmeister campaign,
Mhm.
and 35,000 was dark money from it was a business that there is no business.
Yeah,
that name.
and we call it dark money. It's
Yeah.
outside expenditures,
Yeah.
separate people interested. I don't want to disparage it because, I mean, a lot of the things I believe in and help fund, National Right to Life as a separate campaign
Mhm.
expenditure, independent of the candidate's campaign. That's what we're talking about. I believe Governor Stitt would be one of those people who was really encouraging outside expenditures because he was very disappointed with the Senate leadership. Not the Senate per se,
Right.
but the whole Greg Treat Senate Pro Temp team. Because of, I mean, you and I had this talk the other night. You know, Charles McCall was not some, kowtowing, licking the boots of the governor. He held his own. But his character was much different than Greg Treat's strident, hostile, argumentative.
David,
You know,
let me interrupt here. I'd like to finish on how much money you had compared to.
Oh,
what
okay.
was
Oh,
coming.
yes.
let's finish
So I had 30,000, which was including the primary and the general, and it was up against 130,000.
Ooh.
And so I thought, and I won by over 2,000 votes. And so I thought that was against McCourtney. He had 26,000 to over 300,000. And then here in, it was Brian Guthrie. There was well over 400,000, I think about 470,000 against him. And he had 130,000, which I would have thought was a lot of money. Because as I said, I only had 30,000 for the whole, both races, the primary and the general. And so 130, I would like that. That was incredible money.
Yeah.
But it was up against 470,000.
Wow.
Yeah, let's
Mhm.
explain. He was up against a state rep, Boatman, who was trying to run for an open Senate seat. And Guthrie was the mayor of Bixby, which is
Yes.
a big part of that
Yes.
district.
Apparently they liked him.
Yeah, there are just some things that money isn't going to fix. I like to rub it into Eddie. Dana, you and I had this debate over the principle of medical marijuana years ago.
Yes.
I think those of us who are trying to get this in, especially I was for veterans with mental health issues, we had 16,000, and the chamber alone raised 1.3 million, and they still got beat handily. Eddie just loving this. I just loved it.
Well, my big opposition to that was just this. I didn't want people
I know.
saying, what time is it really, man?
Yeah, no, I know. There are things
I
you
didn't
and I
want
agree
to
that were
relive
wrong.
this. I didn't want to relive the 70s
Yeah.
again. That's all.
We all agree there were things wrong with that particular written proposal.
Yeah,
Yes.
what's so funny is that I'm the former doper.
He
He's
is.
not. He's not.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
he says former.
I'm the anti. I'm the anti, and
Yes.
he's the pro. legal marijuana.
I know, and he and I had this debate back then,
Oh yeah.
and what his argument was you want gun rights. You don't want anybody restricting your gun rights. He said, "Well, I don't want anybody." I remember you said you were a teetotaler
Mhm.
and you don't drink, and
still
I
am.
don't drink. I haven't for 40 years,
Mhm.
and been off of all drugs for about 50 years.
Yeah.
So, but I understood David's point, and
Right, yeah.
today, and I remember today I said when I have a group of about 50 pharmacists that look at pharmacy bills.
Mhm.
And so I asked the clergy, I said, on some of these medical, I want you guys to weigh in with me on the constitutional point. I may be for that, but you guys will have to argue with me why I shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any way that you foresee of being able to roll back some of the? To me, there's no reason that you shouldn't have to go to a doctor or some medical professional to be able to prescribe it and then have it behind the counter and be dispensed through
Yeah.
true pharmacies, not
Right.
the FARMACY. Or I'm an insurance agent. I actually have one that something pharmacy, FARM.
Right.
Yes, So, is there a way that you foresee it being rolled back, or are we so far down? Is it like prohibition and
No,
we're too
OMA
far
is
gone?
working on the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana
Mhm.
Agency
Right.
is working on. They're having to. There's a lot of problems. So we ran a bill where if they confiscate a farm, the money goes to the. I don't know if it was. I remember if it's the sheriffs who deal with that, or if it's the state police, but the money goes to them. So because it costs them money to burn down fields, it costs them money to do things, and so one of the one of the
Pay
problems.
volunteers tribute.
They said that I believe it's like 80% of what's grown in. And don't hold me to that number, but it's a high percentage. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Eddie, I got an answer, and this is news that didn't really make a lot of publicity. One of Biden's best decisions, believe it or not, was about 3 weeks ago, maybe a little more than that.
Are you sure he made the decision?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Exactly.
Is to move it to schedule, but the FDA is going to move it from Schedule 1, which means, nobody gets it, to Schedule 3 on the federal level.
Okay.
That will allow states then to put it back in the traditional pharmaceutical environment.
Oh,
And
okay.
in fact, a friend of mine who worked that campaign, 778, on that, or 788, I said, you realize everything that we put in place of that could now get preempted and moved to the Walgreens pharmacy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people, this is what Eddie's saying, that may be a good thing if you truly want to treat it as medicine.
Yes, and that I was all for medical marijuana
Right.
at that time when it happened, because it is better than taking a pharmacy drug that can have all kinds of other problems.
Mhm.
So I was for that, but what we really got was not medical
No.
Right.
marijuana.
Yeah.
You just got a bunch
Can I
of
interject
headshots.
something real quick?
Mhm.
So THC right now, like my mom is marijuana, which my mom was never a pot smoker,
No,
but
clarify. Your mom
Just say Eddie's marijuana.
But,
Just say Eddie's
okay,
marijuana.
Eddie's marijuana. I'm like, my mom will be like, I never smoked pot. What are you talking about? Was less than 5% THC.
It was a
Yes.
lower.
The
yeah,
current THC,
is more potent.
30%, 30 to
As high
35%,
as.
as high as.
Yeah.
So we are seeing. I actually door knocked
Mhm.
the chair of the Oklahoma State, the Oklahoma Medical School. She's the chair of the psychiatry department.
Mhm.
Talked about psychosis
Mhm.
happening in patients, permanent schizophrenia happening from these high levels of
Oh,
THC.
interesting.
I'm going to debate that, but that's
That's coming from that expert. And so I have seen it doing ride-alongs with police. It's very scary.
yeah.
Some of the things that we used to, if you saw somebody that was driving 10 miles an hour down the highway, you were pretty sure they were high.
Mhm.
That's not the case now. That
Right.
still happens, but
Right.
so we need to make sure there is some sort of oversight that needs to happen on
Mhm.
on how it's being processed.
Yeah, Israel's way ahead of us on the research.
Mm-hmm.
Our federal government has banned actual research that would give us those
Right.
clinical studies.
Right.
But if you've got schizophrenia, the worst thing you could do is
Mhm.
take marijuana. I mean, one of the worst things.
Especially the high levels of it.
Yes, right. Because
That's
you
what they
already can't differentiate between reality and your
Mhm.
psychosis. For the person, like we've got veterans doing 2 or 3 tours, and we're wondering why they have the PTSD that we didn't see in World War II, where they might have served 2 or 3 years max. And my dad, Korean War, my entire childhood, my dad was on benzodiazepine tranquilizers from the VA, addicted to it. He went to one of my sporting events all through middle school and high school because he come home from work, he had to take another one. And then he's a couch potato. I love my dad, great man. The courage that it takes for people with a mental health issue to
Right.
continue on and providing for his family of 11. You know, this was a challenge, but we are able to exchange the benzodiazepine and about to go into flashback, and they take their vaporizer and just breathe in once, calm down. 30 minutes later, they're ready to move about their day.
Right.
But
So
I think again, what we're saying is it just needs to be handled differently.
Exactly.
Exactly.
we
I
need-
think we all can agree on
We need to
that.
get rid of the head shops and put it back in the doctor's hands
Yeah.
and make it truly medical marijuana,
Mhm.
not just go to the corner
I have-
to some pharmacy.
A friend that he got the medical marijuana card. I don't remember why he got it, but he said he needed it for something. And he said his doctor's prescription was he's supposed to smoke one bowl of this as a little tiny, like, you know, like they said, about a match head or double match head size in the morning, and then again in the evening when he came home. He said, and he at that time he had a place out in Oklahoma City. He had to go to where he was working at, and he said there was no way in the world he could drive out there on smoking this little. And he said, this is not the marijuana I experimented with in
Yeah,
college.
right.
Yep.
He said this is 10 times stronger, and so he said he had to forget it. And he just, when he came home at night, that's what he did. Was he, you know, and I forgot why he felt he needed that, but anyhow,
And the other aspect is the 12 plants that you can grow at home.
yes.
That's that's just license right there, you know.
Well, six of which can be flowering at any time. I will say for people who now I've got some friends. I mean,
You do, yeah.
my Bible study leader, who's severe inflammation and pain and use of pain management. But he first went down, you know, trying to find it, and the dispensaries might have it this time, might be selling something else, and he needs to find exactly what. So once he found it, he grew his own. That way is reliable stuff. The guy ended up losing 80 pounds. He looks 30. Last time I was at a birthday party, I didn't recognize him, and he thought I was mad at him because I was snubbing him.
So you're saying someone lost weight smoking?
Well, keep in mind,
No
he had a
munchies for him.
severe inflammation issue.
Oh,
Right.
He had joint problems.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And,
interesting.
Yeah.
and then he wasn't sleeping because of it.
Well, autoimmune.
Now he can sleep.
and
I mean, yeah,
diseases.
it's exactly.
yeah.
And, you know, because he was not carrying that water away
Right.
and all that.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal.
I have trouble sleeping because I dream about JCAB bills.
Okay.
And I wake up and Joel, did I vote yes on that? I didn't mean to.
I have no. I mean, I'm that boring. I read state statutes. Because I'm that boring of a guy.
Christy, do you need to leave?
I do.
Yeah,
I
I don't want to keep. I mean, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. But if you need to go, I don't want
I
to.
actually have family in town, and
yeah.
for the event we're doing. But
Yes.
thank you so much.
Sure.
I appreciate so
Why
much.
don't we go ahead
Love
and
it.
take a break here?
Okay.
we can let
Yeah,
them
sure.
know?
All right.
And if you want to come back anytime, especially when you win,
All right. I would
We'll
be
be glad to
honored.
have you
I would
back.
be honored. Thank you so much.
all right, we are back. Christy had to step out. She had other obligations, but Senator Prieto remains with us.
You made the cut. Not every guest gets to stay in the second part.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, it usually gets the foot in the butt.
But now you got to have opinions on
Yes,
everything.
okay.
David.
All right.
Yeah.
Who do you need me to throw under the bus?
There you go. Yeah.
So, what do you see as the key issues that you guys have faced in the legislature this session? You can slide the chair a little this way because it'd be better if you look straight. That way, the people are looking at
just be looking this way.
that way
we
the
see
people
better.
can get a better profile on you. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Dana really loves you. Didn't mean to turn his back on you. You know.
Yes. Well, the key issue this time was it was tax cuts and budget.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what happens is the House and the Senate are always fighting. And then magically we come together about 2 weeks before, and then before the end of a session, and we're able to vote on a bunch of bills very quickly. And oftentimes you don't even realize what's in the bills. Now, this year they did a really good job, I thought, of transparency. So they, I mean, we said
At the end.
no, from the beginning. In
Really?
the Senate we did.
Oh.
So I remember turning around. Joe Newhouse was sitting behind me, even in the appropriations committee, and I turned around and I said, "This is after the 6th hour of hearing budgets."
Mhm.
I said, "I kind of like it when it was hidden before." It was. I said
Yeah.
it was a lot less boring. So I mean, we actually spent a number of days, 6 hours, listening to each committee present their budget,
Yeah.
why they needed an increase or why it was going to stay the same, why that agency needed whatever, another $1 million or another $100,000, and so we heard all of that. And that was part of the transparency. And then that was also all out online. It could all be watched.
Particularly last hearings, though, we're all live with the governor's team and everybody.
Yeah.
Hadn't seen that before.
Yeah, no, and that was new. And that was all part of initiative.
So Greg gets some credit on
yes,
that.
he wanted to do that. I don't think that the House necessarily loved that.
Yeah.
But I think that, to me, that's been big part of the problem, is that leadership on both sides just didn't seem to get along.
Both chambers.
Yes.
And then you got the governor, which is kind of a 3-way debate going on.
Yes, and that's of course what government is about. It's about the different things coming together and saying, well, I think it should be this way. I think it should be this way, and let's work together towards a common goal.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm working with Dr. Ebony Johnson. She's a Democrat.
Yeah, here in
Yep. And I'm working with Representative Melissa Provenzano.
Okay.
Has just joined me. She's a Democrat. But we're coming together for the good of the children in TPS. So Tulsa Public Schools. We one of the major problems with Tulsa Public Schools, their F rating is truancy. So we're working on a $7 million program that is. So it's the whole idea is to change the whole family. I used to work for motivational speakers for years, and so what I would call this is personal self-development. He calls it something else. I don't know what he calls it, but at any rate, the idea here is to change the whole family, get them to they're going to bring football stars in and talk to the families and the kids, and getting them to see that school is important.
Okay.
Because it's in the Tulsa public schools, a lot of times the parents don't see it as important, because they might have a cleaning business and they want the kids to say, hey, come on, you can help us with a cleaning business and don't go to school. Or they might have a construction business and just, they're going to walk into the help in the construction business. They'll be able to make money here. School's not important. So what we're trying to get them to through this program, and it's I believe it's a 3 or 4 year program that is going to, anyhow, the whole idea here is to change the whole family, to get the community all involved. So if 33% of the Tulsa public schools are single moms, if their car's broken down, we're going to have a church involved.
Yeah.
It's got a van. The church, they can call the church. It's going to be a qualified driver. You're going to have to pass some kind of test. They can take the kids to school.
Well, you're speaking to culture, and you want cultural influencers.
Yes.
To try to. When I coached the homeschool tennis team, I developed it for Noah back years ago, 20 years ago now almost. One of the teams we played public schools, and I remember, I think it was Nathan Hale, and I was talking to the coach. He got $1,000 stipend for the whole season. He was not getting paid squat,
Right.
And they did their sports as a 7th-hour program. I said, really? I said, it was always after school. He says, oh, we'll never keep these kids after school. I said, why? He says, most of them have jobs after school. They have no money unless they get a job. They want to wear decent clothes. That's not these are all from poor families.
Yes.
And so the only thing to me, the self-employed, you talked about the, dry cleaner or the construction, that I think that's a minority of it. Because, the people who grow up in the home of somebody who owns a business, they have a special skill set and a chance to learn things that your employee doesn't have. I think it's more punch in the time clock type family breadwinner. And often it's a single family.
Yes.
Or single parent family. I'm
Right.
sorry. And so I think you got to speak to that, because the kids often are latchkey and or they're looking for a job just so they have a little bit of money.
Right.
Paper route at age 8. If I wanted any money, I did,
Dave, yes, but that was 100 years ago.
I understand that the principle still the same.
Well,
It's
I
money.
understand. This is the best part of our program when we argue.
Where he tells me where I'm wrong.
Exactly. Because, and I hate to do this, even to disagree with you to some extent. I think,
but I'm always right, so don't.
well, good.
I'll side
I'm talking
with
to
you.
the right person there.
Okay, I'm going to side with you now. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Take us on.
I don't think that's the answer. I mean, I haven't seen your whole program with Dr. Johnson and all the things you're talking about, but the because it's been tried. You know, I watch the NFL Network a lot. It's one of my favorite networks to watch because I'm a real fan of NFL, and I see these athletes all the time talking about the need for education and, you know, go to school, stay in school, da-da. Nevertheless, it doesn't work. And plus, I've worked up there. I started a soccer program at Neighbor for Neighbor up in North Tulsa, and we ran teams. We started the whole soccer league up at O'Brien Park. And I mentored a little boy up there. And his mother had 4 children at the time from 4 different men and was living on welfare. And when George W. Bush made the
Faith initiatives?
No. The work for welfare. I can't remember what they call it. Workfare, I guess it was called, where you didn't get welfare unless you got a job. I think Clinton actually started. He started it, but then it kind of waned, and then Bush carried it on. So she had to get a job,
right?
And she was just complaining about this job, that she had to get this job or she was losing her welfare. And then what did she do? She she worked at it for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, and got herself fired so that she could get, that type of thing. And then the kid, she just didn't basically care. So the one kid ended up being adopted. She got tricked into this by the lady who was a foster lady who took it. And then she got tricked into having the kid adopted by
another thing I'm working on, but that's another story.
By a parent in Jenks.
Yes.
To save this guy. Mm-hmm. She was ticked off when she found out that he was taken because it cut her subsidy, right? And so what does she do? She gets pregnant again by yet a 5th person. Yes. So what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to get at, there's a mentality there that is just dug in, that just doesn't want to pay the cost,
right,
to get the benefit.
Right.
And the only way you're going to do that, and they will use their children, and it's not a racial thing, because I could go into other stories, but anyway, to get to the core, there's got to be some pain, and you're going to always be fighting the other side that is going to say, oh, you can't do that because it's cruel and heartless. But that's usually the people who are making money from the social programs.
Well, you'll have to have, now this is a privately funded program, by the way. It's not, there's no state money in this.
Wow.
So you'll have to have Dr. Hatcher on the show, who wrote the program. And then Travis, who, he was kind of the genius behind it. He's a OU professor of IT. Mm-hmm. And so the concept is, like I said, I call it personal self-development. Mm-hmm. So for the parents, so we've Representative Provenzano, she tried this on a mini scale when she was the principal, I believe, in Bixby. She had a group of people that were constantly truant, and so she tried rewards for the kids. She said it worked miracles getting the kids to school. But what we're trying to do here is we're going to reward the parents also. So but the parents have to go, the parents and the children have to go through it. So, like I said, for lack of better explanation, graphs they have to read each day, and they got 2 questions. They have to answer those questions and pass it with a 50% rate or something. And then the kids have to get to school 95% of the time during the month. If they do, then the parents will get this, the kids will get this. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is the whole important part is what they're reading, and that has the potential to change. Now, is it going to change everybody? And are some people going to read it and answer the question? Sure. But after 3 years of reading this, we're hoping that it's going to have an impact
on somebody. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just saying I'm leery, and there are pitfalls in that.
Yes.
Just like anything else, of course, and to me, I've just found that as soon as the lady found out that her welfare was being messed with, she made a point of getting her kids, taking care of the kids and getting a job. In this case, getting a job.
Yeah.
But then she found a loophole or way to get out of it, and there was no follow-up recourse. In other words, she was let off the hook too easily. And that's what I find with a lot of these programs, that there's not enough follow through to really reshape or recondition the minds of these parents.
The parent,
right?
To educating the parent, and so you guys will have to have Dr. Hatcher in, because he runs the program, and
That's interesting.
and he's much smarter about it than I am. As a matter of fact, when we had a meeting with Tulsa Public Schools and some of the principals, they looked at it and they said, "This is SEL." And social emotional learning, and there is a conservative, and I said, social emotional learning. I think as Republicans we don't like that. So, but one of the principals told me, she said, you have to understand, without the emotional component, some of these students are just not going to learn.
Right.
Okay, let me throw something else in there. One of the things that kept me in school. Keep in mind, from a poor family, if I want anything, I was going to have to earn it. Okay.
Right.
We have on-the-job training then. We had clubs in school, DECA, Distributive Education Club. It was part of we take a marketing class, 2 class hours a day. I'm down at the gas station filling gas. That was back in the day when somebody would pump gas for you.
Yes.
Or carrying out groceries, at the grocery store, things we quit doing, but there's a number of people that aren't into the STEM stuff. We need plumbers. Hello.
Yeah. We
need people. But we cut out the auto shop and the woodworking, metalworking. Right. We don't teach welding. Man, when I was in middle school, we had a firearm safety and maintenance where we had to bring a gun to school and redo the stock and re-blue the barrel and all that, and, things you don't do anymore. What's happened is a bunch of academics have basically tried to tell everybody you got to follow this path.
Yes.
That a lot of the blue collar, the trades are not part of that. And we lost a certain person. And then the poor family that, you got to accommodate, the kid could really use some spending money.
Right.
And they don't want to have to choose between school and actually being able to eat.
Right.
But Dave, it gets back to what Dana was saying about the emotional part. See, the Black culture, because it's been ghettoized and it's been brainwashed, is the only thing I can think of, that certain jobs, even though they have no job, then they have this menial. They consider anything. They associate kind of manual labor,
service industry.
plumbing, exactly, with slavery.
Yes. Right.
You know, and it's a sociological problem that you're
Yes.
dealing with, and
And
until
it's not just black families. I mean, it's
oh
you know,
yeah, in certain, but it's
more economic.
but it's
Yes,
but it's
economic
yeah,
class,
but
yes.
it's prevalent that, but it's tougher in that community because that community has been pumped with this information that they think you're a slave. They want to re-enslave you. You know, that kind of reinforcement of thinking of a certain Democrat. I was going to say a certain party, a certain party.
Oops.
Oops. But the conditioning is so deep now
yes.
that's what you've got to deal with, and it's very, very difficult to break. And that, but see, what I'm trying to wrap it up, and I'll let you finish. That's the real thing that has to be dug out and dealt with.
There was an old Jewish comedian on the Ed Sullivan show. I don't remember his name, but he said, if everybody goes to college, who's going to clean the fish? That's what I want to know.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true.
So one of the things, do you guys know who Dr. Hatcher?
Mhm. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't.
He, his brother was killed in a gang shooting, and he determined he was not going to be like his brother, and so he was going to be different. And so he's just been kind of gifted. He's a doctor of theology, but he went to a town in Africa where they were fighting. The two tribes in the town that lived in the town were just killing each other, and he decided he could stop that. So he worked with them and got them the truce, and it's the town is still, 20 years later, they're not fighting anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thinking that's going into this. He was able to change their minds and get them to see a different way. And he went to, I believe it was Black Lives Matter, when they came here from out of state one time too, and he went to talk to the president who came, or higher up in that, who came to, and he was hoping to be able to talk to him and get him to see some things, and he said it didn't work. It didn't. So there's times when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's times when it does work.
Oh yeah, the leader of Black Lives Matter, St. Paul, Minnesota. I was reading. He quit, and he said this organization doesn't care about the Black issues in society. He said, I do. And so he started a different organization that actually is picking up the needs in the Black community about that. So yeah, you're always going to run into those race baiters who really their agenda is completely.
But I do agree with you that it transcends race, because they're in fact, I remember watching the Feed the Children, the charitable group out of Oklahoma City.
Larry Jones.
Yeah, Larry Jones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first time I ever saw it, in fact, it moved me to give, but he was talking about, you've heard that every 4 out of 5, one children goes to bed hungry every night. He said, but did you know that 3 out of 4 of those children are white? We always think that, that
interesting.
And it's kind of like Biden thinking, that if you're poor, you're Black kids, but no, there are very powerful, and he was particularly showing videos of Appalachia, Kentucky, West Virginia down to Kentucky and Eastern Tennessee and all of those areas.
Truth is,
you can't believe, how bad those people are still living in some of those areas.
Yes.
Some of it's right here in Tulsa. In all parts of Tulsa.
And, I forgot what I was going to say. Go ahead. Once you got another question?
No, that's
so
pretty
you're
much
working with a couple of Democrats
yes,
to help out with this.
Yes, and I think the point was that we were talking about the Senate, but the two leaderships not being able to get along and work together for a common goal. And actually, the House members and the Senate members would like to work together.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping that whoever gets into leadership, we've got the leadership in the House settled, but we're still working on the Senate. And hopefully, whoever that is, the leadership, they'll be able to get along, and it won't be.
Okay, now you got their attention, because everybody wants to know there's a lot of phone calling going on because there's a void here.
Mhm.
And the question is, that bunch that, was all behind McCourtney, he kind of built his coalition. And all of a sudden, people are jockeying for it. I'm hearing Lonnie Paxton's one of those people.
Lonnie is going to run. David Bullard is going to run.
Now, David was kind of from the Tea Party right, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would call him Christian right, and a lot of times we're painted as ultra conservative.
Mhm.
But
I understand.
David's willing to work with both sides, willing to work with, he's got an 80% conservative rating.
Yeah. So
80 to an 80.
you got those two people. I would have thought Julie Daniels, the former mayor of Bartlesville.
I spoke with Julie the other day, and she told me that just her husband just had, I think, knee surgery, had a knee replaced and some things. And she said it wasn't a time for her to jump into this.
Yeah, because you got to be capital all year long.
Yes.
For this job.
And that's what she said. And it was just, she said the point that she's at in her life, she thought it would be better for Lonnie. And she said that her and Lonnie were classmates, and they came in, so they came in together, and that she feels that he would be conservative and be able to bring the right wing conservatives and the middle of the road and the left wing conservatives, if there is such a thing.
Yeah.
Together.
See, I thought Julie would be that person.
Yes. And she told me that Lonnie would be able to do that. And Lonnie called me, and I just explained to him that David Bullard and I have been friends. He's the one who asked me to run for office.
And
also, yes. And yes, actually he jumped in at the end after I won the primary, and he got a number of the conservatives to donate to my campaign.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Murdoch, I've heard.
I don't think he'll jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a guy that he lives closer to the New Mexico capital than the Oklahoma capital.
Yes, and he said he always is talking about all the things we do are for Tulsa and Oklahoma City, or like, for instance, like we're talking about rain, all the rain we got. He said they haven't seen rain out there in like 5 years.
They hadn't. This spring. They got some rain.
They got some rain. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But yes, that's been a challenge there. And but I agree. Is you see, and this is the thing. It used to be that rural Oklahoma dominated the legislature. Tulsa never got road funding money. Part of it is because we had a Republican delegation too, and the Democrats, they would give money to Oklahoma City, but not Tulsa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so yeah, you've got all these things. Here's the thing I want to say. We've Bingman, Schultz, they didn't have the kind of temperament and demeanor that we saw in the Greg Treat leadership. And I think I want to see the Senate go back to a time where we don't concentrate so much power in that office. Even the funding that they're able for re-election campaign. Greg Treat basically took what each senator would have gotten. He got to pick the winners and losers.
I've heard that, and I believe that's probably true.
Yeah.
The Greg Treat that I saw, I heard all kinds of rumors about Greg Treat before I came there, but the Greg Treat that I knew I thought was reasonable, and other than the fighting with the with the House.
Oh,
but my interactions with him were always good.
Okay.
And even when he had to reprimand me on something, I thought he was good.
Okay.
And I think that may have been because at at our last caucus, it was almost half of the Senate, our caucus, the Republican caucus, did not want him. And I remember him at that time saying, I can make some changes. And so I think he did. I think in his last year, or last couple of years, I think that he did. And he was, at least from what I could see, that it was better than all of these rumors I had heard.
Okay.
I was told that I had been being watched.
Oh, I'm sure.
When I came up there, because I was they expected because I worked for Nathan Dobbs' campaign,
Mhm.
and so they assumed I would be negative and far right on everything. And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the things I learned when I got up there was
Mhm.
everything was not
Cut and dry.
not cut and dry, but it was also not a hill to die on.
Mhm.
There's some things there's like I said, there was about the abortion pill.
Mhm.
That was a battle, hill that I was willing to die on, and I was going to be a no, even if it cost me, the next election, or it cost me, some emails and things.
Mhm.
And I do get a lot of, and I like to have fun with emails that I get. Somebody had emailed me one time, and they were complaining, I believe it was about Ryan Walters.
Mhm.
And I replied something that was kind of funny. And they said, I cannot believe you would say that. And I said, you must be a Democrat. And they said, how did you know? I said, well, you don't have any sense of humor.
Yeah. I just say, you remember Allison Eichley Freeman?
No.
She won a special election. This is right before Cody Rogers won it the next general election.
Oh, yes.
It was Dan Newberry's seat was vacated.
Yes. Oh, yes. I remember that.
And Allison's first week at the Capitol, I went down there, went to her office, and I said, hey, I know your campaign manager. I said, her daughter had ran Bernie Sanders' campaign. So now we know
okay.
you're talking that far from. But on some issues, we actually work together. Medical marijuana. So, and I said, Allison,
Pinko.
I said, if I could give you some advice now that, we have mutual friends. And I said, and I am, the Tea Party right guy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I said,
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I said, you may, if you're open-minded, you may find some allies in this building that you're not aware of. She kind of looked at me very suspicious, like who? I said, Nathan Dahm, you know who he is. Yeah. I said, you and him agree on medical marijuana. She says, I could never see myself working with Nathan Dahm on any. And she starts rolling off all the derogatory comments on him. So the next week, she gets appointed to the Health and Human Service, or Health Committee on the Senate because, she's a mental health professional, a therapist. And she's sitting in there. I'm watching it on the web, their committee meetings. Nathan Dahm has 2 bills he brings up. Her first meeting, and she ends up voting for both of them. So I text her. I said, yeah, see, I told you could work with Nathan Dahm. And I'm watching, it's in that big conference room, the 4th floor. And I see her pick up her phone. She's looking at it. And then she starts, doing her text thing. And I get my message back. She says, there's got to be something wrong with it. But the way he presented it, how could I not vote for it? And
I have had Democrats tell me that before he was stripped of his committee chairs, that he was the most fair. He would tell everybody, Democrats included, if you have bills, I believe it was 2/3. He said, if you can get 2/3 of the committee to say, I want to hear that bill. He said, even if I am 100% completely against that bill, I will hear that bill in my committee.
Yes.
So he was fair.
It goes further than that. I was asked to come kill a bill in the House by Paul Wesselhoff when he was chair of elections and ethics. And he wanted to get rid of our Super Tuesday thing and move us back 5 weeks to where we wouldn't even be a player in the presidential primaries.
Right.
And I said, well, Paul, you don't have to hear the bill. He says, no. He says, look, Jason Murphy and Nathan Dahm and I are 3 chairmen in this building that we will either hear a bill or hear one very similar. He says, Dave, you're going to have to kill it because I'm not going to. I'm going to give that, I'm going to bring that up.
Give it a chance.
Right.
Yes. And I think that's being fair to the authors of the bills.
Yeah, you don't have to hear everyone. If you got 5 of them that say similar, bring up one and let them amend it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and that was the style. I think Nathan was really the first one I saw, maybe
Mhm.
Jason Murphy on that, but great people.
Yeah.
And they believed in liberty. So I just want to say, I think what you're demonstrating to me today, talking about this education initiative, is you can be creative and cross the aisle without losing your values.
Yes. Well, one of the first bills I ran was for Tulsa Air and Space Museum.
Mm.
It came from John Waldron,
Mhm.
who is far left.
Yeah.
He and I agree on very, very little.
Mhm.
But what I agreed on was that Tulsa Air and Space Museum, just like the aquarium, should not be paying sales tax.
Exactly. Just like we brought up with the
Yes.
aquarium, the
Yes.
Sims. And that's, again, helping the municipality
Yeah.
at the state. And I think, do you and John overlap a little bit in districts?
Yes, we
Yeah,
do. Yes,
exactly.
well, so Tulsa Air and Space Museum was his. That's in his district, and it's in
Yeah.
my district, and so Sandra Sheldon, who's over the aviation,
Mhm.
said that she had never given a bill to a freshman.
Mhm.
I did get hammered on it in committee. And I didn't know some things,
Mhm.
and Senator Hall took me out in the hall, and he
Mhm.
said, "Never ever say that a bill is for one place." And it wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be for 3 or 4 other museums, air museums, but it came back that it only affected this one.
Mhm.
And then they changed it afterwards. But then there was a bill that Adam Pugh was running that would make all museums tax exempt.
Mhm.
So I pulled mine. And I don't remember what happened to his. It never got hurt or something.
Mhm.
But it is a problem in the state as museums having to pay taxes, and they could save. That museum's always at zero,
Profit.
zero profit, zero budget, and they're always like, we could go under. No, we're going to make it,
Mhm.
And so that little bit of tax for them. And then also they want to expand. And so they're getting donations now to be able to expand. I think they even got some ARPA funding.
Yeah.
And just that little bit of tax cut and bind the 2x4s for building the new building, the materials would help them a real lot.
One of the former directors of that Air and Space Museum went on to become the NASA administrator.
Yes.
So there's
Yes.
a little bit of cred. Hey, let's weigh in on some national news. I think
Okay.
we cover what you're doing. Did you watch the debate the other night? I know you and I
Yes.
were at a meeting before it. But,
I went to, it was Clay Clark's
you did go.
place there. Yeah. And there's probably about 100 of us there watching it. And it was kind of fun watching it with a bunch of other
I'll
Republicans.
bet.
Yeah. Because we all laughed at the same time.
Yeah.
Clapped at
Well,
the same time.
we used to be for Joe DiMaggio. Now we're for Joe Dementia. Yeah, it was sad to see.
Yes.
On one level, and some people have said, this is elderly abuse in a way.
Well, and now, as I think we were saying earlier, the Democrats are trying to reimagine it. I guess that's what they're good at,
Yes,
reimagining.
Yes, they are.
And they're trying to change the whole narrative of what happened. First of all, he had a cold. Now they're saying
he must have been on cold medicine or something, right?
Yeah, he had a cold, and that Trump lied through the whole night.
It's all
Mark Cuban, even, what an idiot. How he ever became a billionaire, I have no idea, but he's an idiot if he thinks Trump lied, but Biden didn't. I don't know. He just totally negated any kind of credit you want to give him. But the narrative is now totally that, Biden did fine. He was good. And they're trying to, even though the New York Times basically said it is finished,
CNN came out that night.
CNN as well.
This was completely stacked in Biden's favor.
Mhm.
And it became, to me, you always heard it was a puppet regime. He wasn't really making any decisions. Other people are. It became, to me, it was very obvious this guy is not making any decisions.
No. But what's interesting about CNN, I thought Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, the moderators, I thought they did a really good job. I really did. There was one time Dana tried to bail Biden out. I don't know if you caught that, where he was fumbling, and then she said, All right, thank you. And mister
Mhm.
Trump, she cut him off to go to Trump.
Because it was going to get worse.
It was, yeah. She knew we better. It was like the hook pulling the person off.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought they did a really good job, and they were really fair with it. But yeah, it was a debacle. I mean, it was really, really, really
So
bad.
I got to say, this morning doing my show prep at home, I was trying to find a picture. I thought there's going to be plenty of pictures of Joe at the debate. Did a Google search and can't hardly find any. The Democrats real quickly put up this picture on Twitter, X, of Joe from years ago with sunglasses on outside and his big smile, looking very charismatic. They do not even want images of this demented Joe,
Did you notice that? Because I watched him and I put a clock to it. And there was one time for 3 minutes straight, he never blinked.
Yeah.
He just had,
Yeah.
he looked like that. I mean, I can't even do it. My eyes would dry out, but the entire time, never blinked. One time, I can't even talk and not blink.
One of my favorite things was Trump looking sideways at him, and you could just tell he was like questioning.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't even know what he said there. He said, I'm not even sure he knows what he said.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and
Yeah, Trump was brilliant. He did not. Trump just let Joe be Joe.
right.
Yes.
Right.
Stayed out of the way. I
And
thought it was-
there's the one. They had a panel afterwards, a CNN panel, and I can't think of the girl's name. She used to be on CNBC, but she's got a show now on CNN. And anyway, and in the panel, she said, I have it on, I saved it actually, but she says that she couldn't believe that he did as poorly as he did it, even though he was given the questions in advance.
Yeah.
She actually admitted that they gave him, that he had the questions ahead of time.
Oh my God.
She let
I
the
had no
cat out of the
idea.
bag. Yeah, she let the cat out of the bag. They already had the questions that they prepped him with beforehand, and she let it out of the
Yeah.
bag.
Wow.
But
And that's why she was so shocked. How could he do this with an advance, notice of the questions?
yeah, did he beat?
To prepare for it.
Is it true that he beat Medicare? That was one of the first.
How did he beat it with his
Yeah.
fist? Or, yeah.
Yeah, and then one time, by the way, they did not mute Biden's mic. There were
Oh,
several times
interesting.
Biden made ad lib comments during Trump's, and they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't give them quite as high a score as you. I think we're
Well,
both
I don't
impressed
think-
how well they did.
I don't think they were in control of the muting. I think that was done by, how most television has a what do you call them, a program director or
I understand
engineers,
that.
and they had somebody back there
Yeah.
telling them when to do.
But that's
whatever.
all CNN.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
it was CNN. I'm just
Yeah.
talking about Dana Bash and what's his name, Tapper. Jake
Yeah,
Tapper. I thought they did a good job.
Okay, they were not consistent on this. Remember that first Q&A rebuttal, and then Trump said, "Hey, do I get to respond?" And then Tapper said, "I'm going to ask you this follow-up, and then you can do what you want with
Right.
it." But to me, that was an attempt on their part to redirect Trump's attention where Trump could have, had.
Right, but what did Trump do?
Oh yeah, he went back to that's how good Trump is.
He didn't. Yeah, he just did it anyway.
Right.
And then he answered their questions.
Right,
so-
but
Yeah.
see,
See,
Biden
yeah.
couldn't do that. Biden doesn't have that
Oh,
kind
right,
of
yeah.
coherence.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they were made it tougher on Trump by doing that.
Yeah.
When it was his turn to rebut, they said, "Okay, we're going to ask you another question."
But it makes him look that much smarter.
Yes,
Trump.
It did.
he's always been good at, he's reading from a teleprompter,
Mhm.
and then he'll go totally off,
Mhm.
cue and just tell some story,
Mhm.
and then go right back to
Yeah,
it where he
yeah.
was, and it just shows his mind is extremely sharp.
It is.
I don't even know if I'm not very good at impromptu,
Mhm.
and he's excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he's older than all of us, and he may be sharper than all of
Yeah.
us by a mile.
I want to get to Ryan Walters.
Okay.
The only person I know that may be under assault more than Donald Trump. particularly in our state, at least.
Yes.
It's unbelievable how much ink he gets in the Tulsa world. I don't know about the Oklahoma City papers.
Oh yeah, my trash wasn't picked up, and it's Ryan Walters' fault.
But I was really happy to see that the legislature, at least the House, essentially passed all of the initiatives that he proposed, and that Governor, there was one, I think, that they didn't, and then Governor Stitt. Now I don't know if they came to the Senate yet, but the
He
governor
vetoed it. Vetoed the line items, or no?
Yeah, well, yeah, because you guys didn't approve one of the items, and then Stitt overrode it.
No, we did approve. So what? I'll tell you the backstory. What happened there?
Okay.
So as I told you, at the end, everything's rushed through. We don't know. We're sitting in a JCAB meeting on Memorial Day.
That's a joint conference committee,
Yes.
JCAB.
Yeah, we got called in on Memorial Day because we had to vote. You have 24 hours, and to get out of there, I got out of session at our approved at the time, which was the 28th, I think, of May or something like that. It might have been the 30th or whatever it was. But so we had to come up on Memorial Day, which was a Monday.
Mhm.
So there was a bill that was it's a budget limits bill that was for Ryan Walters' department. A budget limits bill is we're giving you this money, and there's and so it'll say certain amounts got to go towards this, got to go towards that.
Earmarks.
Yes, and so McBride had put in there some things, line 15 and 16, that said that Ryan could not spend any money out of that on marketing.
Mhm.
Well, the department has to market. The AG he's got a team of people doing marketing because they're putting out press releases. They're doing things. Ryan would have to do that from his department. Joy Hoffmeister was spending $500,000 a year on marketing. She had a team of 12 people. When Ryan came into office, her budget was astronomical.
Mhm.
When he came in, he started looking at the different jobs and asked, people who, can you do his job? Oh yeah, he doesn't do anything. All right, I'll give you a little bit of a raise then. And they would get rid of the other guy. So what did Tulsa World say? Ryan Walters can't staff his department because Joy Hoffmeister had, I don't remember how many people aboard,
Right.
but let's say it was 50. Yeah, she's got 50 people. Ryan's only got 25 or 20 people. It's because he can't staff his office, when actually it was just the opposite. So in this limit, but by the way, let me explain to you how nobody knows what's going on up there. So that day I'm sitting next to George Burns, Senator George Burns, and I leaned over and I said, is this that bill? Could this possibly be the bill? Because the Democrats were
And
arguing.
Burns is a rural senator,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
And I asked him, nice, good conservative guy, and I said, is this the bill that Ryan wanted us to be a yes on? He said, it's got to be. The Democrats are arguing so hard against this. It's got to be that bill. What else could it be? Why would they be arguing this for 15 minutes or half an hour in this JCAB meeting? So we're like, okay, we better be a yes on this. So we're a yes. So there was 3 versions of that bill that came out that day. And they told us to hold off. They were going to come up with a 4th version of that bill. So they were going back and forth with Ryan's office from the education department. And from what I understand, Ryan said they thought they had it worded well enough to kind of changed what McBride had put in there, that they had it well enough that it was going to be okay. And then I think when Ryan's legal team came out on a Tuesday, because they weren't working on a Monday, they said, what? You thought this was okay? It's terrible. So they called me and called everybody, I'm assuming all of the, conservatives. And So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So they went to the House. They tried to get them to be a no on it. They only got 36 no's.
Mhm.
They needed more no's in the if they could have got like 51 or something,
Yeah.
wouldn't have passed.
That's a problem with omnibus bills like that.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know.
And so we voted on the next morning, early in the morning on that morning, because you have to JCAB bills, 24 hours you have to vote on them.
Mhm.
We voted yes on it. The whole Senate then voted
Mhm.
yes on it in the morning. I found out at 4:00 that day when Ryan Walters' office called me and said this was a mistake.
Yeah.
And told me what was going on. We're trying to stop it in the House.
Mhm.
Couldn't get it stopped in the House. So then what we all did was we went to work with the governor's office.
Yeah. Because he has line item.
Yes. So I
Right.
went to
Line item veto.
3 or 4 people in the governor's office
Mhm.
and said, please either veto the whole bill and I'm not sure they could veto the whole bill.
That'd be a mess.
Yeah. So,
And it wasn't necessary.
or just line item 15 and 16.
Yeah.
So they all told me we're working on this. We're looking at it. Thank you for your input. And the governor's office, interestingly enough, they will reach out to you and want to know, why were you a no on this?
Okay.
Because they want to know, he's looking for, should I veto this? There was a bill that was, it was to take, you know what the PARB is? Post Adjudication Review Board.
Oh.
It's so anytime a child has been taken from a family,
Mhm.
from a parent, and it goes to the court, it's
Okay.
adjudication. By statute, every 6 months, they have to go through a PARB review, which is a group of individuals who are, they're just volunteers, and they're going to make a recommendation to the judge. Yeah,
Gotcha.
do
Yeah.
what DHS said. DHS is right, or we really think.
Well, it
DHS
also gives parents an appeal.
Yes, and so by statute, every 6 months, found out this is not happening in most of the state at all. But anyhow, the bill came through to make that the PARB meetings. So the first part of the PARB meeting is in the Open Meetings Act.
Mhm.
So you can go to the first part, but then when they start talking about kids and the
Yeah.
cases, then that you have to leave the room.
Yeah.
And now, as a senator, I'm allowed to stay in the room. So I've been to a couple of PARB meetings.
Okay.
So anyhow, when this bill came through, I was the only no. And because not that I was against anything that the kids, any of these files being kept secret, not getting out there.
Mhm.
So the governor's office wanted to know, why were you a no on that? Because he genuinely wants to know, what do you know do I need to veto this?
Mhm.
And I just said, I'm pretty much, I understand why that needs to be, why these things should not be in the public. I said, but anything these people are trying to do right now to hide from the public, I have to be a no on.
Mhm.
And so they said, okay, thank you. And he did not veto that one. I think I
Well-
thought I should have probably been a little bit
Okay.
tougher on that.
Well, yeah. I mean, you want to protect the kids, but
Yes.
you don't want to protect bureaucrats from manipulating the
Right.
law for their own benefit. So I think I understand where you're at on that. So I think what happened, the way Eddie and I discussed it, is Ryan was contracting with an outside public relations firm
Yes.
to do the booking, rather than maybe Joy Hoffmeister had her own staff reinventing the wheel. And
Right. Well, that's where she was spending $500,000.
Yes.
He had, and I believe she had 12 employees.
Okay.
He narrowed it down to, he had a social media person and a video person who would come up and do videos for him,
Yeah.
but they lived in Texas.
Yeah.
So,
Wasn't it contracted out rather than employed?
yes, it was a contract. It was a contract. He was spending a total of $150,000.
Yeah.
So you would think that Tulsa World might say, "Oh, wow, look at, he saved,
Mhm.
the difference between
350,000.
350,000."
Right.
Yes. No.
Well, here's from my perspective in media. It's very much about building relationships. I mean,
Yes,
we have
yes.
Randy Crable in here
Yeah.
pretty frequently because these things are important. And when you're in the public relations business, that's your stock and trade. Is I know the producers from all these big cable networks, they already know who I am.
Right.
And Whereas Joy might know somebody, they got to build those relationships.
Right.
You're smarter to take somebody who already has that established
Yes.
connections.
Yeah.
And they can do it for umpteen clients cheaper than somebody just being paid for Joy Hoffmeister.
Yes. And also the Tulsa World had, believe it or not, they have a lot of errors in there.
Oh, really?
You're probably going to find this hard to believe. There's a lot of disinformation in there.
Oh, no.
So,
And half truths.
yeah. And yes. So what they said was at one time his campaign,
Mhm.
he brought him on as chief of staff.
Mhm.
So that was another thing McBride, this is what they had in the news, that he was against that. And then he said he's got his campaign manager. This is what Tulsa World said. Who knows what McBride really said, or who knows what, because they put disinformation in there. So they said McBride McBride had said that that he has his campaign manager on staff who lives in Texas. I have seen his campaign manager has been, I believe he's been in my office. I've met him in the, at the Senate, the Senate before. He's been at a press conference that Ryan and I did together. Anytime I've ever talked to him, he's been in Oklahoma.
Mhm.
Now, did he go home and see relatives on the weekend? I don't know, and I don't care. But whenever I needed to talk to him, he was in Oklahoma.
Can he do the job?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I met Tom Cole, we're in the back of the room because I brought in a presidential candidate to meet all these hobnobs. And Tom was like, this guy knows what he's doing. It's Phil Graham, Senator Graham,
Mhm.
Texas. And I said, I haven't met you, Dave. And he said, Tom Cole. I said, Tom, what do you do? And he says, well, I'm Secretary of State. Oh. I said, I'm sorry. I should know. He says, I ran Keating's campaign.
Oh,
And then he
okay.
gets elected. So there's a campaign manager who
Oh,
became
Secret. Yes.
it's
The point is you can
kind
trust,
of a chief of staff when
Yeah.
you're Secretary
yes,
of State.
Yes. And you can trust this guy.
You already know you have chemistry.
Yes.
You've already tested him.
Right. Exactly.
You know he can do the job.
Yes.
So I just think that just rings so. I've been friends. We've had dinner together, our lunch, and we've been. I used to have so much more respect for him.
hmm
And a mutual friend of ours, John Eccles, John's like, I don't know what happened to McBride.
Okay.
And they're neighbors. McBride used to come over for poker night at his house, And so it's sad. It really is sad to me. But McBride's done now. So we have a special session. That's going to be a whole new world next February.
Yes, I think that's what our hopes. That's what our hopes are. It's going to be a whole new world. Actually, I think whoever wins the pro tem race, I believe it's going to be a whole new world.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be the infighting. I'm hoping as much as it was, and we're always going to disagree.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that whoever we have as the pro tem, that they're going to listen to their caucus,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
not the other way around. We're listening to the.
But I will tell you this, we found out from Christy Gillespie how much you elect your city council, and then the city council gets to pick who the mayor is for the whole town.
Yeah.
Well, we elect senators, and then you guys get to pick who is the number 3 in line
Yep.
for governor.
Yes.
And Greg Treat served a day or two as governor
Yes.
when Tulsa needed him bad after the windstorm
I
last
remember
year,
that.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And Greg didn't even know he was the governor. And that's how poorly he and the governor's office communicated.
Maybe he didn't know the governor was out of state.
And Matt Pinnell and Matt and Greg, Kevin didn't know. There was a big breakdown in communications there amongst all three, because I had the county commissioner's office call me and say, do you know anybody who can get us in touch with Kevin Stitt?
Right.
And I said, try calling John O'Connor. They pray together and stuff, And then I find out later, and he says, found out he's out of state. I said, well, how about Pinnell? No, he's out of state too. And Greg Treat gets notified that you got to sign this emergency.
Oh, yes,
declaration.
yes, I remember that.
Yeah, it's a
Uh-huh.
crazy thing. Well, anyway, here was my point. We got off on a rabbit trail, but it was funny as could be. Is that it frustrates a lot of us, the
Mhm.
powers that Greg Treat have, and we have no control because he's consolidated so much power that his predecessors wouldn't do that. And I think I'll encourage you and every senator out there, stipulate, here are the reforms, the rollbacks of consolidation that
Mhm.
we want.
Yeah.
And I think you would curry a lot of favor with the state, with the people of the state,
Mhm.
to go up publicly with an open letter to all candidates.
That's not a bad idea. When Greg Courtney was running, he came to meet with me.
Mhm.
I told him that I would be with, Senator Bullard. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
but I said if it was based on comedy, I would vote for you for sure, because he's got a real good dry sense of humor. I really like him. But he said, I asked him about the infighting and the power, and he said just exactly what you had said about the power that was
Consolidated.
and amassed.
Mhm.
And he said, here's the way I see, and I actually like this. He said, here's the way I see the pro tem. He's a general manager of a company, or president of a company.
Mhm.
And he looks at the caucus chair who runs the caucus.
Mhm.
And then he asks him. In other words, he's bringing all the information from all of these groups and then managing them,
Mhm.
not micromanaging them, not being over all of them, but putting the information that they're giving.
Yeah, but
together.
a lot of those leadership positions that the caucus used to vote on became appointments. This is from Nathan Dahm. He explained all that to me. And that's the thing. You got to roll back those things, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I think if you stand for those principles, I think it's a no lose. And you're just saying to all the candidates, and let them rush to beat each other to sign that pledge.
That's not a bad idea. Also, we need to look at what rules were changed in the last number of years
Mhm.
that got voted on,
Yeah.
that we can maybe roll those back
Mhm.
and say, well, okay, we
Yeah.
find this bad, we find this bad. Maybe sit down with Nathan and find out what.
That's who I was going to say.
Yeah.
Get with Nathan, because
Yeah.
he knows, because they were largely going after him. And Nathan was the only one fighting Greg Treat on that,
Yeah.
when that whole thing happened. So that's where I think the whole state would love you for that. I really do.
One of the things that when we did vote on rule changes, they were given to us literally 5 minutes, 10 minutes
Yeah.
before. And so it reminded me of, who was it who said, Pelosi said, well, we'll just have to pass the bill to find out what's in it.
Yeah, I know. Oh, speaking of that, so we had a big ruling yesterday that people are still trying to figure out, U.S. Supreme Court, that is called Chevron deference, or it was because of something that gave the agencies so much power to fill in any ambiguity in statutory law. Now, that's a federal government thing. Here's my problem with how our state does it. The agencies make up rules. They're supposed to be just to kind of provide a framework of how the agency does what you guys told them to do. And they have to get the governor to approve those.
Mhm.
Then they become effectively statutory law until the next legislature meets. And here's my problem. You have to, both chambers and the governor all have to agree to remove something,
Mhm.
or it stays law.
Yes.
It should be the other way around. There should be an affirmative vote to continue it.
A lot of things we are voting on sunset, as something ends and then, but this is just a sunset, we want to extend the sunset for a year or two.
Well, those are sunsets of appointees to boards is what I've seen more often. Who whose position on a board. I'm just looking at, because, you know, your counterpart in the House used to be Sean Roberts, good friend of mine. He handled,
yes. Mhm.
he handled that. And this was the thing I'm seeing is the agency got to write state law unless
Yes.
all of you, that both chambers and the governor
We're against it.
were against it.
Yeah. Here's one of the problems with the agencies.
Mhm.
So I'll use DHS as an example.
Mhm.
The Pinnacle system came into place, I don't know how many years ago. And so they put something called the OCCY and the PARB, which is the Post Adjudication Review Board. OCCY is Oklahoma something Children and Youth,
Mhm.
Commission on Children and Youth.
Okay.
Those were the OCCY was to be over, and the PARB. The PARB goes to the judges and says, "Hey, we think DHS got it wrong, or we think they got it right. We think that this is." So I want to give another influence here. OCCY was if a child or if a parent feels that DHS has done something wrong to them,
Mhm.
they can go and complain to them.
Mhm.
So I was told by the head of the OCCY that 40% of those are substantiated,
Mhm.
that that the DHS worker has gone rogue.
Mhm.
So guess who's on the board of the OCCY?
Hmm.
Dr. Shropshire, the head of DHS.
Mhm.
So you literally have the fox guarding the hen house.
Yeah.
So, and this is the way it is with the Department of Corrections. This is the way it is with all agencies. Any whistleblowing part of that, or any part of that that's set up to be the watchdog, is set up under that agency.
Oh God, that's horrible.
So what J.J. Humphrey's prescribing is that we make an agency
Mhm.
that all whistleblowing part, the overseeing goes under that. So now your boss isn't the person isn't the person over the agency.
Yeah.
Your boss is the guy who's over whistleblowing.
Yeah.
So that's the guy you have to please, not the one who's, you got to go to him and say, "Hey, I was going to, I think I'm going to talk to the legislature about, all the stuff you're doing wrong."
Mhm.
"Oh, well, you're fired."
A funny story on that. I one time made a statement obvious to everybody except those whose job it is to know this, that the most common scenario of child abuse is the single mom with a live-in boyfriend,
Yes.
and not the parents who still spank their kids.
Right.
When my wife and I had our third child, my wife went through a postpartum depression.
Mhm.
It's more common than people realize, and it's varying in how impacted. This was pretty severe at the time. And thank God she got, help and recovery. But during that time, that summer, my boys, 8 years old and 5 years old, she wasn't watching them as much. And she let them play in the yard or play in the cul-de-sac with the neighbors. But to her, that was below. I mean, she was almost a helicopter mom. We both were. And so when I'd be at work and that, and one day she's recovering and everything done well, my neighbor comes by at the mailbox and I meet him there, and he says, "Oh, my wife and I just bought a house. We need it painted. Can you come give us an estimate?" So I went over that night, and he's showing me, he says, "By the way, I just want you to know, my wife and I really think you and your wife are incredible parents." I hadn't met him until the mailbox.
Mhm.
And I said, and I met his wife. Now, there's
Mhm.
young couple, they haven't had kids themselves, but they're finally getting a house so they can have kids. And I said, "Oh, well, thank you. I didn't know you were." He says, "Oh, yeah." He says, "My wife works for DHS, and she's an expert in deciding when parents are fit enough to get their kids back." I'm like, my God, the DHS has been living in my cul-de-sac.
Wow.
And I had no idea just how in danger we were to losing our kids,
Yes.
because we weren't meeting our own standards.
Right.
We didn't know whether,
Yeah.
and he said to me at that, he says, "Oh yeah, I'd see the kids in the neighborhood conspiring, out in our driveway. Oh, hey, let's go do this. And your older boy would say, no, Charlie, we are not supposed to. Come on, let's go home. And they'd go home.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, that's how we knew you guys were good parents.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
But I had no idea. Here's my point. She was the expert for DHS.
Right.
She hadn't had a kid. I had a bumper sticker used to say, I was a much better parent before I had children.
The head of DHS does not have any children and has publicly said she
Well,
doesn't like
the
children.
person in charge of deciding when somebody's fit enough to get their kids back.
Yes. Yes.
And this is a thing I see. We've got a bunch of academics taught by our liberal university on what's proper child rearing and parenting.
Well, we have a lady here in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
Her kids have been taken away. She has to get she has to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like 40 or 50 bucks an hour to have supervised visits.
Yeah.
Guess what her day job is? She works for DHS and she supervises visits.
Mm.
Oh,
So she's allowed to supervise other people's kids, but when it comes to her own, we don't think you're so.
Mm-hmm.
Much
that's
of this
problem. Houston, we have a problem.
Yes, yes. And I could spend 2 shows with you guys, 2 hours talking about the problems with.
It's obviously something you really have immersed yourself in.
Yes, I've worked with, there was a person in our church, worked with them. Now another person in our church, this is happening to them. And it's become an epidemic where it's, there's a movie out there. Well, there's a local one that just won the Rogers Film Festival.
The one about the Woolies?
Yes, the one about the Woolies.
Yes, Kevin was in here. He debuted on this show with us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Kevin Batts.
Kevin Batts. Yeah, Kevin Batts is my EA's brother-in-law.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Kevin and Janelle are just
yes.
great people. I've known them 10
yes,
years.
they come into my office all the time. Kevin and then Bullard's EA, who's next door to me, that's Janelle and Nicole's mother.
Oh, how about that?
So when I hired Nicole to be my EA, I said, well, if you don't know what to do, just open up the door and yell, Mom, what do I do?
Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate you having that. But again, to me, you got people who aren't parents
Yes.
telling people who are
Right.
how to do their job.
Yeah.
And then some of them who have to pay for court visitation to see their own kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the thing is to see this all up to a DHS worker who is not trained in how to do an investigation, and they're the ones doing the investigations. It really should be somebody else doing the investigation. So I've been working with some panels of different groups of people. We just had a meeting. The guy was the guy who started Shadow Mountain.
That was the mental hospital, Shadow Mountain Institute.
Yes. And a private detective who works in this space, and a lady who's over the PARB, one of the PARBs, the chair of the PARB. And what we started looking at was other states, what they do is they have an evaluator. So it's a mental health provider. And you would know about this. They have assessments that can be done. So currently right now what happens, your kid gets taken away and almost always it's a he said, she said, not all the time. Sometimes they just taken away from both parents because there was a case in Broken Arrow. The mother had a different parenting style than perhaps people in Broken Arrow do. Let the kids play out until after dark and their feet they run around barefoot, and people didn't like that. And they called DHS.
Yeah. Most of those complaints are used as weapons in a divorce proceeding.
Yes. So 90% of them, I believe, are that.
Exactly.
But then some of them were the neighborhoods difficult. I ran a bill that did not get heard this year, and that was that so you can report anonymously. So I ran a bill that I forgot how many. So there's a number of cases. In other words, a lot of it is just fraudulent reporting. I don't like my neighbor, so I give a fraudulent report, or I don't like the person I'm getting divorced from, so it's a fraudulent report. So my bill said that there can be no anonymous reports because of all of the ones that they have proved are completely false, there was no basis for this report,
Mhm.
you can assume those were reported anonymously.
Yeah.
So my bill simply said, you cannot report anonymously. You have to give your name, phone number that can be hidden from the records and it can only be unsealed by a judge. See, so here's the problem in a DHS case.
Mhm.
A DHS worker is the only person that's considered an expert, and there's no
Appeal.
well, so you would here's the example I always give. Let's say I live next door to you. I flirt with your wife.
Mhm.
You get mad. She tells you get mad at me. We get in an argument, and I call DHS anonymously and say, I saw David beating his kids out in the
Yeah.
backyard.
Yeah.
If the DHS worker decides she doesn't like you
Mhm.
and she likes
If I got
me,
the wrong bumper sticker on my car.
yes, exactly. She doesn't like you, but she likes me
Mhm.
or he, whoever,
Mhm.
they'll end up taking your kids away. They go to court. They're, whatever they say is what they take. So in a normal court of law, that would be considered hearsay.
Mhm.
But in the case with these DHS cases, it's not considered hearsay. It's considered expert testimony.
Oh my goodness.
So normally what would happen in this scenario I just set up
Mhm.
with you is you would ask the DHS worker, well, where did you hear this? And the judge would have to, I like to unseal who filed this report.
Mhm.
And you find out, oh, it was Dana
Mhm.
against David.
Mhm.
And then,
The guy who's having an affair with his wife.
well, or the guy that,
Mhm.
I was not having an affair with your wife.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was just flirting with your wife,
Yeah,
David.
it's okay.
Try to
was
stick
having
to
a
the
Keep your
affair.
analogy straight.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
So,
She was flirting with me.
Yeah. There you go.
so anyhow, but you would be cross-examined. Well, didn't you just have a fight with him 2
Okay.
days before
Okay.
you called in that report?
So that's the constitutional principle of a right to confront your accuser.
Very good.
Nobody will be deprived of life and liberty without due process of law. And one of
Unless
those
it's a
things-
DHS case.
Yeah. See, and it's the thing, because if you can't confront them, see, it takes some, like, God's blessed you with in your life, your wife and kids are top, right? And to take away your kid, they might as well rob you of everything else and then some, because taking your kid is the most precious thing. And that's the sign of a good parent.
Yes.
And you're robbing them of their purpose in life.
Yes. Yeah.
God.
I mean, I walked through with somebody that we became friends with, actually helped them pay for a lawyer. And then that lawyer ended up having hard problems and couldn't follow through with the case. But I mean, we just watched this. And so here's the problem. So you go to court, you've got to get it. The court brings a lawyer for the kids. Usually the spouse or the foster care mom wants to adopt the kids. They get a lawyer.
Mhm.
They're all in, I call it cahoots with the judge,
Mhm.
who says, well, I think I played golf with them for years. I think they're probably going to be correct. And I'm listening to the DHS worker in this case,
Mhm.
who's got to bug up their butt about this person, So now they're all against you.
Mhm.
I know somebody who's spent $220,000 so far
Mhm.
trying to get their child back.
Mhm.
And so what we want to do is these evaluators,
Mhm.
its average cost is $6,000. It's split between the husband and wife, because like I said, normally that's the case. I suppose if it was taken away from the husband and wife, they're going to foot the bill themselves. But the average cost is $6,000. The average cost in a DHS lawyer is like somewhere between 10 and 20. I mean, somebody to represent you in that is somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000. But most people I've talked to have spent well over that. So,
Just to get back
That's
what
right.
you should have never lost
Yes.
without due process of law.
there was a lady at Tinker Air Force Base, had a toddler, fell off the porch, got bruised up. By the time they took it, so the next day, the toddler was crying about holding her arms. They thought might be broken.
Mm-hmm.
Take her into the hospital, or him, I don't know what it was, and take the child to the hospital. The hospital calls DHS. They take the kid away. Got bruises. It's got to be abuse. She was, I believe, it was a mother who was stationed at Tinker Air Force Base, and it was, I forgot how much she spent. If it was $10,000 or $20,000, and a year later got her kid back. Another lady who's Hispanic. Because I am Hispanic, everybody assumes I can speak Spanish. I can't, and so she called, and in broken English said, "Baby born, bump on head, bump on head." Doctor said, "No problem, bump on head." So then the baby, we take baby hospital sick. They say, "Why bump on head? Take baby away." Now they want other baby, take other child too. And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. I don't know what to tell you. I don't, and you feel so sorry for these people. Now, every doctor who had seen that kid, and they always asked him, "Why does this baby have a bump on the head?" Don't worry about it. It's no problem. Baby was born with a bump on the head. It's not gonna be a problem.
Yes, skulls form.
Yes, it'll change as they get older. So they took but the one doctor sees the bump and decides it's a DHS case. DHS comes and says, "Oh, whoa, the baby's got a bump on the head. You can't," and then they take the other kid too. I've seen cases where if they report suspected abuse, and then go to a doctor and say, "Look at this, is this abuse?" And the doctor says, "I think that is," and the doctor reports it. They will, I've known 3 or 4 people this has happened to. They'll say, "You are submitting false reports 20 times. Well, no, I didn't. I only reported it once to DHS and then once to the doctor. Yeah, well, when the doctor reported it, that's you who reported it. And so they say that's child abuse and take the kid away from you. I know 3 or 4 people this has happened to. They take the kid away saying that, well, that because of you, this kid has had to have a SANE exam. It's had to have, physical exams. That's child abuse. Almost like Munchausen by proxy. There's a famous case. As it was the movie's called, it's on Netflix, Take Care of Maya. They thought the mother was doing the Munchausen by proxy, and that this kid shouldn't be going through this therapy. Yeah. So the mother and the father end up, they take the kid away. The kids taking the kid away for, I think it was about 30 days or something at this point. Yeah. It ended up being about 3 months. They have I don't know how they got the video or the audio of this. The mother and father are arguing. It's the mother's fault. Just stop arguing with these people from DHS. If you'd stop arguing with them, they give us our kid back. And she's, but they're wrong, and she couldn't give it up. Finally, the mother decides it must be my fault. She kills herself. Oh. Yeah. So what happens after? So they had this kid for about 3 months. After the doctors and the DHS doctors all look at this, they say, "Oh, the mother was right. This is the right treatment for the kid." Mother's dead. Yeah. They just won. It was 7 years later. They just won $211 million from DHS. So at the end of this movie where they show, and this DHS worker to this day says, "I did nothing wrong." Yeah. And so they, at the end of this video, they go around the whole country. Somebody in Phoenix, same thing's happening to me. Somebody in, Tulsa, and so it's a national problem. Yeah. And we're having the problem here.
I just think that if you staffed DHS with empty nesting parents have already raised their kids, you'd have 10 times the wisdom in that agency. Forget all the PhDs, just people who have actually raised kids in a diversity of experiences. I think we'd have more sense.
Yes.
All right. Well, listen, we've filled a couple of hours here, and thank you for your expertise
Yeah.
and giving us knowledge on so many different
there's one
things.
thing. This ties into that about things being wrong. Supreme Court did I just get muted? Yeah, you did.
No,
I can't hear myself.
well, that's your problem
Yeah,
because
okay.
you're up.
Okay, so as long as that gets it, Supreme Court made a ruling in something like the Fisher decision. It had nothing to do directly, but it does impact several people who were put in prison over being invited into the Capitol on January
yes.
6th.
Yes, yes,
And then
yes.
go in, and I know one guy committed suicide in there after he found out he's going to spend 4 years in prison for something a cop invited him into.
Right.
And the way the law is written, you can't sue a judge
Yes.
for taking away your constitutional rights, even though the Supreme Court said the judge was wrong to add 2 more years, or even to make something a felony that was a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
And it had to do with if you didn't interrupt a proceeding, you can't be prosecuted.
Mhm.
Several people that hours later were still at the Capitol because a cop invited them in,
Right.
and they're being punished for interrupting when they didn't. They weren't
They weren't
ones-
interrupting
they
anything
weren't the
because
ones
it was
busting
already
the glass in the
Right.
doors and
Yeah.
in that. By the way, all that confrontation that went on J6 there,
Mhm.
most of it happened while Trump was still speaking.
Yes.
People who weren't at the Trump speech,
Right.
and most of them were the black hooded bunch
Yes.
that we're still trying to find out. Some of them have Antifa
Yes.
connections in that. But
I've heard Jenny Cudd comes when she came and spoke.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is the kind of problems we're having. So we did get a win, but we still got dead people.
Yes.
Well, and you've got what's his name? Tario, Enrique Tario
Yeah.
from the Proud Boys, who wasn't even there.
Yeah.
He wasn't even there that day, and they decided to throw
Oh,
the
they
book
threw
in.
like 20 years.
Yeah,
on
20 years. Yeah,
it. This is just
because
happening.
he specifically wasn't there because he smelled a rat.
He told Alex Jones the night before, he says, "This looks like a setup. I'm getting out."
Right.
Yeah.
So he knew
Yeah.
something was up, and so
Yeah.
he didn't go. And one of the other leaders, one or two, and they imprisoned them as well. So
Mhm.
the whole thing is to me a black mark
Yes.
on our country, and the people who are crying democracy
Mhm.
Yeah.
are the biggest demagogues, if you will. Excuse me, if you will. It's just a sham. It's sad. It's sad. And,
Yeah.
and to have Liz Cheney and what's his name, the former Michigan
Kinzinger.
Kinzinger. Oh
Yeah,
my God,
Adam
crying Kinzinger. It's just a shame. It's
Yeah.
really too bad.
It's sad to see what's happened. By the way, one last thing on Joe's debacle debate performance. This is nothing new. He didn't just get dementia this week.
Right.
The press and the White House have been conspiring to hide Joe
Yeah.
Right.
for a long time.
Yeah. Well, they hit
And
him
this-
during that last election. I mean,
Yeah, this is criminal conspiracy.
Yeah. And here's the sad thing, even sadder. They're trying to now recover it up,
Mhm.
and it's not going to get better. I mean, that's the thing. It's not going to get better.
Yeah.
So, you know what I think happened? Did you see the after party that Biden went to? He spoke afterwards. His wife led him off the stage
Yeah.
like an invalid, but all of a sudden he shows up at this after gala or whatever it was. All these people were cheering and yelling, and he was like a different guy. So I'm wondering if they didn't give him the drugs too late,
Mhm.
and they didn't kick in on time.
oh, uh-huh.
That's what I'm wondering,
Mhm.
if that's not what happened, because he seemed like a totally different person when you saw him, because he was animated, he was moving around better, and he wasn't the
Yeah, because remember the State of the Union, he was over a half hour late, and he was so wired
right.
when he was there.
Right. And this one, I'm wondering if they didn't time the drugs properly.
Mhm.
Back to your original question about judges
Mhm.
being held accountable.
Mhm.
I think all judges should be elected or appointed differently somehow,
Hmm.
But one of the things going back to the DHS, I had a torts reform bill last year that I held off on because I like looking at the problem for a while. I don't like to just run a bill
Mhm.
because 80% of our work is fixing a bill that was written 2 or 3 years ago.
Poorly.
Yeah. So
Too quickly.
I want to look at it. Tried to work with DHS themselves and tried to fix it internally.
Mhm.
They did not appear to want to work with me.
Mhm.
Or I've had a number of there's Senator Shane Jett, Representative
Mhm.
Humphrey,
Mhm.
Representative Hefner, and Representative Swopes. We were all working
Yeah.
on DHS reform. His mothers wanted to join us.
Mhm.
So I had a torts reform bill
Mhm.
that would allow us to, I believe, that would allow us to sue, not us, but if you're wronged by a DHS, if you could be proved that a DHS worker lied about you in court,
Right.
you can sue them.
Yeah.
Which would mean that they would have to get insurance for being.
It would be a defamation. It would
Yes.
be something
Yeah.
where it was malicious or that nature.
Yes.
A mistake is a mistake.
Yes.
But we're talking about
Yes.
no,
And so, yeah, it would have to be very serious.
Mhm.
But we are seeing cases where this is being done.
Yeah.
I mean, where.
the funny thing, Shane's predecessor, Ron Sharp, he would run DHS bills, but it was all things that would strengthen the powers of the DHS
Yes.
to the detriment of the parents. And one
Yes.
time I had quite a debate with him
Yeah.
about it because he
Well, what happened was the pendulum at one time was over here,
Mhm.
and then they said, well, kids were, they were giving the parents the benefit of the doubts, and then kids died.
Mhm.
So then the pendulum swung back the other way, but it's never been in the center.
Mhm.
It's never been,
yeah.
So another bill that we're going to propose is that, so in a murder case, if you get convicted of murder, you will automatically have an appellate court that 30 days later, I believe it is,
Mhm.
it automatically goes for, you don't have to file for it. It just automatically goes to appellate because they want to make sure we got this right. Nothing
Well,
was wrong.
capital cases, with there's a
Okay.
death penalty, there's an automatic.
Yes,
appeal. Yeah.
automatic appeal. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we think that if you take a kid away, so the way they get around the trial by jury is that it's an emergency,
Mhm.
and a judge says it's an emergency. We're going to take the kid away.
Mhm.
So we think 30 days later there will be an automatic appellate case,
Brilliant.
Yep.
Yeah.
and they look at that and say, okay, well, should this have been taken away?
Mhm.
And perhaps the PARB could weigh in on that, or
I know. But they're going to say you're wasting the taxpayers' money. Yeah.
well,
Well,
yeah. So
some things are worth
same
it.
thing for the judges.
Yeah.
We need to look at things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. All right.
Dana, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks
I
for
know you
having me.
got a lot more to give, and
Yeah.
we would have a lot more to answer.
This
to
was a
ask
real
you.
surprise. I didn't know we'd get this much into DHS, and
I wasn't planning on it at all.
But obviously, this is something you truly, from the heart, have a passion about improving.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Yeah.
All right. All right, everybody. That's it for this week. We'll talk to you maybe next week, Lord willing, and the creek don't dry.
Yeah.